Welcome, everyone. The time is 7:26 in the evening. Thank you very much for tuning in to Oscar's Corner Cafe. Today's date is January 9th, 2026. Today's kind of a little bit of a more mellow evening than normal, more than typical, primarily just because I'm trying to get myself ready to take on a project that I think my wife and I had both agreed that it was time for us to do it. And I think some of us, with either our partner or our spouses, or even if we're living on our own, there tends to be certain projects you kind of prolong, you procrastinate, you wait around for the right moment, the right time, and it just doesn't happen. And primarily has to do because life tends to get in the way. Either sometimes you plan for a trip, you plan to do something, or you plan to clean a room or unbox something in the garage, and then 3 to 4 months pass by. Next thing you know, you're on to your different task. Next thing you know, something happens and it kind of just constantly deviates and puts another priority in front of you. And I like to use a really good example of, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Up. From Pixar, and it's a beautiful movie about, if you guys haven't seen it, which I don't know where the hell have you been the entire thing, but if you haven't seen it, it's about this really wonderful relationship between a little boy and a little girl. They meet innocently at a very young age. The little girl is a very much outgoing extrovert, likes to experiment, likes adventure, and the little boy is the total opposite. He's very reserved, an introvert himself, very shy, doesn't really like to do certain things, but for some reason this little girl just brings it out of him, right? And then eventually they blossom into this beautiful relationship, and as they get older, they embark on this journey, which is pretty tragic. The movie's beautifully written. It's a sad-ass story, though, at the end, but at some point, they realize that they can't have kids, they can't have a family, so they like to focus and deviate their focus into a dream trip. And the whole narrative of their relationship is basically every single year something happens, right? And they're saving little pennies, little dollars day by day, and next thing you know, an emergency happens or a tragedy strikes, and then they have to use and break their piggy bank. Moral of the story is 30, 40 years go by, they're now really elderly, and at the end of the day, they never actually made their trip, right? Which is pretty tragic. But that's basically the way it is. If you look around your home, and I'm sure there's some of us that have projects that we are just procrastinating on, they do exist. So we're tackling that this weekend. So I'm getting myself mentally ready, emotionally ready, because I know I have to go through some of these boxes, and I'm going to have to make difficult decisions on whether I'm going to keep some of these items or give them away. I swear that Goodwill is probably like my very best top vendor, because I swear, dude, we've given that company so many donations, because honestly, you try to give them to the homeless out here where I live in Northern California, and half the time the people that are literally on substance abuse and they are coping with illegal drugs and illicit stuff like that, they really don't want clothes, and they sure as hell don't want food. They want money so they can go get their next fix, which is absolutely tragic, but that's just the reality of it. So rather than us just throwing the items and just having go nowhere, we take them to Goodwill. Well, they'll eventually be sold and given to somebody who can ultimately use them, right, and make use of it. So that's where we're at. So if you notice that my voice being a little bit mellow, also, guys, so my cough, I'm finally at the rear end of this cough / allergy / cold / flu. I really don't know what the hell you want to call it. The point is that if some of you have gone through this, oh my Lord, I think I heard myself in the last episode, and I was coughing 45 minutes in. The entire thing, it was just tragic. But I left the material in there because this is unscripted, and I did want to keep it raw. And if you like it, great. If you don't, tune the fuck out. Just kidding. Come back. So last episode, I think I ended on the whole Venezuela, Maduro, the whole shenanigans with the U.S. and do what they normally do. And I was 50-50 on kind of starting the conversation on something that just happened a few days ago. And I don't know if some of you have seen the news, and it's about a lady in Minnesota. And the lady in Minnesota, there was ICE, which are federal agents embarking on journeys and pulling people over, looking for people that are undocumented and enforcing laws to deport these folks, right? Now, again, I have my own personal opinions on the whole ICE narrative, but I don't want it to make this episode about that. But basically what happened was that this woman and her partner, they were both in the vehicle, and they saw that ICE was just doing what ICE does. And some of you are listening. Some of you might scrutinize and criticize ICE for what they do. Others support it. Others are against it. You know, there's two extremes, but there's never really a middle ground for that particular activity in that department, right? So me personally, I'm going to be really transparent with you guys. I don't like them. I know what they represent, and I know they're trying to protect us, but the way that they're going about it, I feel it's too extreme. And I understand why it's gotten to this point. I understand that there's been a lot of people that have been given way too much leeway, and there hasn't been enough oversight around those folks, and they've just been running amok now for years, and we are where we are. The problem that I personally have with that is that when you hear immigrant and undocumented, a lot of the folks tend to immediately picture somebody of Hispanic descent. And immigrants come in all different shapes and sizes, right? In all shapes and colors. But however, the narrative is Hispanic, Hispanic, Hispanic. And now some of you might be like, no, that's not true. Yes, it is. Every single time we've seen an episode, it's been very rare when you see them on the news, when you see them pull over a undocumented person of a different ethnicity that is not Hispanic. Very rare. But they do happen. But it's just very rare. You don't hear it, you don't see it. So a lot of people just immediately go to that default of what they think and who they are. So this woman and her partner, they were basically parked, right? And then they saw the activity that was going on and that was being conducted by ICE, and they felt a certain type of way. And then they blocked ICE on the road, and they were preventing and obstructing ICE from doing their job, you know, because they disagreed cold-heartedly into what they were doing. And I don't blame them for it, right? However, the way you protest and how you go about it, I guess you could say, let's be smart about it, because now we know that these folks from this particular department are a little bit not, let's just say, they're not as patient, compassionate, or understanding to your particular protest. So they embark on this tit for tat. And at the end of the day, one of the agents approaches the lady and says, hey, I need you to get out of the road. Obviously not in a respectful manner, more in a very authoritative way. The lady takes it some type of way. They start arguing back and forth. Her partner gets out of the vehicle and starts recording the whole incident, right? From a third party perspective, total POV. And they get in a tit for tat. And then there is other agents that approach this vehicle. They surround the vehicle. And then one of them gets, I guess, indirectly in the way of the vehicle that's blocking the road. And then the lady gets, again, very agitated. Tempers are flaring, emotions are going. And the lady storms off because she doesn't take off lightly. Now, we'll give that to the agent. She did it, right? So you as an agent, you're sitting there on the road and this whole thing is going on. Now, instinctively, you see a vehicle taking off, you're going to think it's coming towards you. So the gentleman, instead of diving out of the way, he immediately pulls out his gun and shoots the driver, right? Striking the lady driver to the point where she loses control, because at this point she's dead. She's been shot directly. She's been killed on sight. And the vehicle loses control and crashes into another set of vehicles, and the whole shit show starts. Everybody starts screaming hysterically, losing their minds. You know, how could you? How could you? How could you? And That's what happened. And now there's like protests going on. There's a lot of people, complaining about this whole entire process, the agents. And then our good old president goes on the news and basically supports the gentleman's actions and really is, and I guess you can say in the manner that he speaks is so condescending that he becomes like an antagonist, right? So instead of speaking his mind soundly and explaining and justifying the actions of the agent, basically he starts kind of belittling the actions of that particular person and therefore undervaluing her life. And that's the way it comes off, right, to a person listening. And then I get on social media and I'm just looking and scrolling through the reels and posts and things like that. And everything that I'm hearing is support, but there's always two extremes, right? It's either extreme left or extreme right. So on that one, I think on that, I'm going to create a whole entire episode just on that subject. So I don't want to dive in too much. I would love to get your feedback on how you think in all this, but that's what's just happened, right? And then apart from that, we're going into the college football playoffs. You saw Miami take down Ole Miss. Miami, the massive underdog, and I think Indiana is playing. I forgot who the hell is Indiana playing. I should get my stuff in order. But anyways, Indiana's playing today, and I think they are the favorites right now. I think they're playing Oregon, and Indiana is just smacking around Oregon 48-15. So more than likely it's going to be Indiana and Miami, and the favorite on that one is going to be Indiana, and that's where we're at. Now, once on NFL football, which I'm going to talk about. I have to take a deep breath. So, my beautiful San Francisco 49ers unfortunately lost to the Seattle Seahawks and are going to have to face the Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow. And do I think they're going to win? Very low probability. I mean, the team is so damn injured. I don't even know who the fuck they're going to roll out there. But whoever they roll out there, hey, good to them. The fact that the San Francisco 49ers have made it this far with the team that they've had, kudos to Mr. Kyle Shanahan, because he's done a hell of a job keeping this team afloat. And it's the same thing with Robert Saleh. With the defense that he has, literally with the pieces that he's been given, there hasn't been any consistency throughout the year. And this is where we're at. So the fact that we are able to speak about the San Francisco 49ers being in the first round of the playoffs when other teams like the Raiders, like the Chiefs, like the Cowboys are still struggling to make it to the playoffs, and it's been a minute. So we'll see. I don't want to dive in too much into that because I really want to close the loop and give some time into what the topic of today's episode is going to be. So when we last finished the previous episode, I said that one of the topics that I really wanted to speak about was teen dating. So if you're a parent, I know that some of us are really apprehensive or open to that idea, but it's a reality. Those of us who have young men, those of us who have young ladies, there comes to a point where eventually we're gonna have to face the fact that these kids do get older and they're going to get into these things, right? So this whole episode is going to discuss how we should navigate through this. Some of my personal opinions and experiences with my first relationship and what that looked like, and the whole entire experience, I guess you could say, and things that it might have taught me and what it might not, right? And at the end, I'm going to close the loop on this episode by kind of explaining the positives, and because there are some, believe it or not, and the negatives of being in relationships too early, right? And so let's speak on that, right? So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and let's dive in. Now, some of you know or might not know a little bit of my background. I was born in a third world country. I was born in Nicaragua. And I came to the United States when I was about 7 or 8 years old without not knowing a lick of English. But because I scored so high and the placement exams, because in other countries, believe it or not, they are actually way more advanced than the US is when it comes to mathematics, when it comes to biography, logistics, name it. Education is just better. So when I came over here and I was just kind of getting my whole entire life in order, it was a little bit of a culture shock for me, because obviously coming from where I came from, where I could play it on the street, to now I can't, there was a lot of challenges for me to try to explain and make friends, because number one, I looked different, I dressed differently, because obviously my parents were not well off. So I had to go to Goodwill. I used to have second store bought clothes, used clothes, whatever I could find, oversized clothes, because my parents at the time just barely had the money that they had on their back. And now their story and how we got to the US, shit, that's its own episode in itself that I'm not going to dive into. But the moral of the story is we had to leave our country with whatever we could carry. That's just the way we left. And we ended up in the United States. So because of that very reason, my parents were not able to afford the luxuries of shoes. There was Payless, Ross, whatever we could find, secondhand stores, Goodwill. That was our go-to. So obviously, because I looked different, because I couldn't barely speak English, and I looked differently, I didn't make the best of friends. There was a lot of bullying going around, and I am a single child, so I had nobody to really bounce off any sort of ideas or vent to. So a lot of internal trauma was caused to myself, which prompted me to kind of become who I can become, right? Well, during this whole entire thing, my very first, I guess you could say, girlfriend was when I was in 4th grade, and I still remember that little girl. And I was 9 years old, and she was 9 years old, and she was one of the very first ones that gave me respect and treated me nice. So obviously, because you're the first human being that I've had an actual interaction with, that we can actually relate and talk to, I developed a crush. And that was my very first experience. Obviously, we parted ways. We didn't end up together because she went to a different school. I moved to a different city. I was completely uttered, destroyed, and heartbroken. Middle school comes around. I have multiple crushes, nothing I can build on. Throughout high school, the same thing, short little spurts. Went through my whole puberty stage, and I started looking different. I had a growth spurt. I combed my hair differently. I smelled differently. I was more conscious, so my body built in, because I was a very scrawny kid. So my body filled in. So unbeknownst to me, I started becoming, I guess, attractive to girls in high school. And it was weird for me because I didn't know how to deal with that. So I used to fall into the trap of giving too much and being over the top. And when somebody would give me attention or affection, I would return that type of attention tenfold. So I was damn near a fucking psycho, I guess you could say. So totally possessive and shit, super jealous because I didn't want to share, because that was based on the trauma and everything that I went through in the United States. I felt that that was all that I could do. I felt that that was the way that I could guarantee keeping that relationship and keeping that person. Well, anyways, after lots of trials and tribulations, I met a young lady when I was 18 or 19, and we dated. And unfortunately, she was born, well, actually, no, she wasn't born. Let me just back it up a little bit. So she was from a different ethnicity. I am Hispanic. She was Filipino. And the Filipino village, if I could recall, and hopefully I'm correct in this, that she was from was, I guess, has a really particular reputation of being very, very wealthy. And a lot of people from that particular city are very high-end professionals. So her parents, they're definitely, obviously, expected that of me. And if I was not going to bring that to the table, then I was no good for their daughter. And on top of that, I was not Filipino. So she was dating out of her race. And number two, I wasn't financially wealthy enough for me to go ahead and supplement that, right, and make it okay. But by then it was too late. I had fallen head over heels, and we broke up because her parents rejected the idea of her dating anybody outside of her ethnicity. So that was my very first heartbreak. And I tell you, it was a punch in the gut. Now, during this whole entire process, again, and some of you are catching on, not once did I bounce ideas to my mom and dad because they were working. So I was forced to kind of internalize a lot of these things and go through this entire process solo on my own and simply just bouncing ideas of my friends, which were also a group of idiots. And I say that in the most fondest way, respectful way possible. But you can imagine giving your friends advice at the age of 15 or 16 or 13 or 14. Shit, at that time, you think you're good with it. You think you're wise, but at the end of the day, you have no effing clue what the hell you're talking about because you're still trying to figure this shit out. And that's what I want to get into, right? So now to 2026, I have 2 young daughters and a little man, a little gentleman. And now I have to be conscious and wary of, I want to be able to give them that support and have that open line of communication with them to the point that they can feel comfortable to coming to me and talking to me about their feelings and emotions. And again, I go about this very important, and I say this and I preach this to the channel. It's very extremely important to engage with your kids. Give them the attention and speak with them. Do not be afraid to engage and discuss and talk about topics that are outside of the norm from what we grew up with. Because understand, in 2026, now with social media, odds are they're picking up and they're listening to a lot of the topics that you and I might find taboo. They're already aware of it. Because algorithms are very fickle. Reels, TikTok, they're going to see it. It's going to be exposed. It's going to be, and they're going to see it. So it's better to be ahead of the curve and have that conversation in a very professional and tactful way. You don't want to be totally hood, fucking ghetto. You don't want to do all that shit. You want to talk to your young ladies and have them navigate through the whole entire shenanigans in the right way. You want to make them smart in how to navigate through that. And also incentivizing their own independence and remembering that they are not part of a group think mentality, that they can think on their own and they don't have to necessarily follow the script. And they can follow their emotions and follow their heart. So now I get to my oldest. So my teen is talking to someone. And I just want to say that as a parent, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't know. This was my very first experience with my oldest. And this is my whole story for it. So because the moment that your teen starts talking or liking someone, your brain becomes a true crime podcast, right? You start thinking, okay, who is this? Where do they live? What's their GPA? Do they have a criminal record? What is their favorite color? And why is it that particular color? And then you catch yourself doing things you swore you never do, like reading texts over their shoulder and pretending you're looking at a microwave clock, right? So they could be right next to you and you're just pretending and shit, but you just know. And again, this whole who is this whole like informative thing and becoming a detective, you have to be very strategic. So if you do come into this, no, don't vocalize these things out loud. Internalize them and be strategic in the way you engage with your child about this. Okay, so today we're answering the questions of every parent, and this is what this podcast is going to go through. Right? When is the dating age appropriate? And how do you handle it without becoming the villain in your teen's life story? Because we are all guilty or have heard stories how that can play out. I literally just told you my very first very big relationship and how that ended because of the involvement of the parent. So be strategic about it, right? So here my teen says, yeah, I'm talking to someone, and I go, oh, nice. Talking like what? Words? Like in English? Like normal human behavior? And they look at me and I just asked if TikTok is a clock brand, right? And again, they roll their eyes, they think I'm being silly, and then basically she said, no, we're talking. And I was like, okay. And I know it for a fact that she has, because I can see her behavior, her demeanor. She's more upbeat. And I just noticed that she's acting a little bit different. But here is something that's very, very different, right? So talking for us adults can mean a multiple things, right? It could be texting once a day, texting all day, FaceTime for 8 hours, planning a wedding on Pinterest, or sending each other like 400 memes and calling it emotional intimacy, right? That's what it could be. But we don't know that. And that's why we have to engage and ask those questions. So the first rule of teen dating in your house, my recommendations are the following. Level 1, talking. Texts, DMs, what are you doing, and emojis that mean threats. Level 2, hanging out, usually in a group. Level 3, then is dating, intentional one-on-one time. Level 4 is now feelings have entered the chat, and be ready for that. So what stage is your child in? Are they level 1? Are they hanging out? Are they actually dating one-on-one? And are they officially in a relationship? Because if you don't define it, your teen will say that we're not dating, and then ask you for relationship advice at 1 o'clock in the morning because someone left them on red. So strike that conversation. Which is it? Level 1, and describe it. Level 2, hanging out. Level 3, you're dating, which is an intentional one-on-one time. Level 4 is relationships, because now you have an actual emotional attachment to that individual. So parents always ask, right? What age can a teen actually date? And listen, age matters, right? But let me tell you something. I've met 14-year-olds who are basically accountants, super smart. Hello, I made a budget and I respect boundaries type of shit. You know what I mean? And then I've also met 17-year-olds and 25-year-olds who can't locate a charger in their own home. It just disappeared and I think a ghost took it. You know what I mean? So that's subjective. So instead of age, ask for, are they ready? So here is my are you ready to date checklist, right? Number 1, can you follow basic house rules without dating like you're in a courtroom drama? Number 2, can you hear no without turning it into a breakup song? 3, can you manage your time? Dating is not a replacement for school or your friends, and that's something that we've talked about with my daughter. Number 4, can you be honest about where you are? Number 5, do you understand respect and boundaries for you and for that individual, whomever they are and what they ask of you? Number 6, do you understand consent? And that's extremely important, because of the stuff that they see on social media, on reels, that whole consent thing, it's such a slippery slope. And sometimes kids these days, or even 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds or even adults, they misread the signals. So it's very important for your child to establish those ground rules and those boundaries right off the jump. And if that person that they are so-called talking to or dating to does not understand consent or boundaries, then it's not for them. And then number 7, and this is important, can you come to me as your parent if something goes wrong without thinking that I'm gonna become a dragon? You know, that I'm gonna turn into this whole evil person. So these are the are you ready checklists, right? Review that with your kids. If the answer to most of this is yes, and you feel confident that your child, your daughter, or your son says yes to the majority of this, then your teen is closer to be ready. If the answer is no, don't panic. That just means that dating is a skill milestone, not a birthday gift. So you're not going to reward them in saying like, oh, by the way, now that you're 16, you can start dating. No, cut that shit out. Throw that out the window. That's not what it is. Review the questions that I just basically brought up, right? Can you follow basic house rules? Can you hear no? Can you manage your time? Can you be honest of where you are? Do you have to hide stuff from me? Do you understand respect and boundaries? Do they do? Do you understand consent? And can you come and talk to me? It shouldn't be based on, oh, I'm 16, I can start dating right now. No, evaluate your child if they are emotionally and mentally ready. Now, again, 12-year-olds, obviously you're not going to be dating, okay? That's just fucking boundaries. But at 14 or 15, you're more than likely have an idea what's going on. Now, here's what works in real life. A progression. Because going from no dating to go be alone with a stranger until midnight is how parents end up staring into space like Vietnam flashbacks. So try this. Stage 1. Group hangouts, especially at early teens. School events, games, movies with friends, daytime stuff. Stage 2. Them and that other person, a short one-on-one date. A public place, a clear start and end time in a short duration. Stage 3, it's a little bit more independence, longer dates, more privacy, more trust, still accountability, but freedom should feel like a ladder, not a cliff. Understand that. There's got to be stages. You're not going to give your teen immediate independence with longer dates for somebody that they're barely meeting, and so are you. So in my case, for my daughter, and this is something that I don't think many of us parents have done. My wife and I, we met the gentleman's parents. And my wife actually had coffee with his mom, and they had a lengthy conversation about their own individual life upbringing and where they end up and how they ended up where they are now. And I tell you that interaction between two parents, you get a sense and understanding of the kid's thought process, how they're being raised, their ethics, their morals, and things like that. And it does help in making you as a parent feel a little bit more comfortable with your daughter or your son dating that individual. But for that, in my particular situation right now, we are about a stage 2. Short one-on-one dates, public places, clear start and end time, and short duration. That's just where we are. And here's the famous response. And if your teen says you don't trust me, you say, I trust you. I do not trust teenagers as a concept. And explain to them what that is. All right. So the rules, the fun part. This is where teens act like you just personally invented oppression. Here are the rules that work because they're clear, not controlling. Okay. So rule 1, the plan. Before you leave, where, who, what, and when. Not a 30-question interrogation, just where are you going, who's going, when will you be home, and what's the plan if it changes. These are the rules that you as a parent need to set. Number 2, public places early on. I'm not saying teens are bad. I'm just saying that teens are a group project, right? Run by hormones and poor planning. It's just facts. Public places reduce risk and drama. They're less likely to do dumb shit. Rule number 3, the 2-text check-in. Arrived, leaving, and that's it. I'm not trying to track you like a UPS package. I'm simply going to ask, you're there. They should be texting you, I just got here. I'm leaving, or maybe in between, if it's a little bit more of a longer date, then you simply reach out to them and say, how's it going? Simple thing like that. Rule number 4, transportation. Who's driving? Because right now my daughter cannot drive, but as she gets older, I will be asking her these questions like who's driving, because teen drivers are confident in a way that's concerning. And we see that all the time on the freeways when they're cutting us off, when they're driving like idiots. And then here's a tidbit. Look in the mirror. We were drivers at one point, and you know exactly what we're talking about. And the shit that we were doing while we were driving is highly suspect these days. Rule number 5, the substance lifeline. This is the MVP rule. If there is drinking involved, vaping, weed, you call me. Absolutely no punishment for calling me, because we will talk later. Make sure that your kid is comfortable enough to reach out to you when they don't feel comfortable. When they feel that peer pressure or something mounting or something's about to pop off, make it okay. Have you be that lifeline that they can send you either a text, code word, whatever it is, and you know that you're going to go pick them up. This rule will keep your kids safe and keeps them honest. Rule number 6, sleep and bedroom boundaries. No, we're just watching a movie in a bedroom at midnight. No, because nobody's watching the movie. Nobody knows the plot. The movie is just vibes. Rule number 7, digital boundaries. No password sharing. Absolutely unacceptable between both of them. No location sharing to prove love, because that's not love. That's a parole agreement. And I can tell you that from my own personal experience, you don't want that. Somebody just keeping tabs on you the entire time and finding out where the hell you're at, that's not good. Remember, love should not require a GPS ankle monitor. There's got to be trust. Now, let me tell you about the first time a teen asks to go on a date. They don't ask like a normal human being, so don't expect it. They float it out like a corporate email, like hypothetically, if a person, blah, 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 wanted to go somewhere, doo-doo-doo, with a friend, da-da-da, that is not a friend, what would you say? If you say so dating, and if they respond, not dating, then you respond, okay, so you're going out with one person you like alone on purpose? And if they respond yes, then you'd be like, yeah, it's a date. So if they say stop calling it that, so here's the move. So don't get trapped into word games. Say, I don't care what you call it. I care about safety and respect. And boom, you win. Now, you have to have rules without talks. Talks without rules is chaos. Here's 3 quick talks that actually protect your team, right? Number 1, have the healthy relationship basics. Dating should feel safe, respectful, and mutual. No guilt trips. There should be no threats, and there should be no control from one individual to the other. Have them understand that. The talk number 2, have them understand consent and pressure. Keep it simple. Consent is a clear yes. No pressure, no guilt. Anyone can change their mind. You don't have to deliver a TED Talk just to normalize respect as the standard. The talk number 3, the emergency exit plan with your kid. If you ever feel unsafe, call me. No lecture in the moment. I will come get you. That sentence is a safety net. And yes, it requires you to stay calm, which is hard because as a parent, your natural instinct is, who do I have to fight? It just is. So, and here's the things you also got to explain to them. The red flags. These are the ones that matter in my opinion, right? Number 1, the person that they're dating, jealousy and control. Who are you with? Answer now. That's bad. Isolation. Let them know what this means. Your friends are bad for you. Your parents are controlling. If that individual or person is telling your kid and putting that shit in their head, it's a toxic relationship and you have to make sure that your kid understands that. Humiliation. Put downs. Jokes are actually insults. If that person that you are dating starts roasting you and using you as the butt of the joke to make other people laugh at your expense, that's not a good relationship, and have them understand that. Monitoring, demanding passwords, locations, and constant check-ins, that is not normal. Anger, if you're dating somebody who's punching walls, threatening, and intimidating you, then obviously no. And if your teen says they get mad because they care, it's my fault they freak out, that's not romance. That's control wearing a Valentine's Day. That's control wearing a Valentine's Day mask. Explain to them that that's not okay. And here's the other one, because I've been guilty of this too. Online dating. Now, back in the early 2000s when America Online was first coming into fruition and people were using it quite a bit, I was guilty of going into the chat rooms and being completely naive and oblivious to the fact that I could possibly be abducted. I was sitting here giving people my address and shit, making pen pals from people from out of state. People were sending me pictures. I was sending them pictures. Like, it's just the level of trust you were having around these days. Now that you look back on it, you feel like you're a complete idiot because you're like, fuck, dude, I literally gave the person my address, where I live, the time I go to sleep, the time I go to bed, where my parents work, everything that they need to basically kidnap my butt was on this shit and online dating when it first started. Now, again, In our defense, we were all completely just innocent at that time. We didn't know that there were creepers on the other line. We didn't know that there were people taking advantage of this stuff years ago. That's just what it was. But now, modern teen dating sometimes is mostly digital, so you gotta be mindful of that. Your teen can be in a relationship with someone you have never met. And you're like, so who's this? And they're like, it's my partner. And you're like, okay, is your partner carbon-based? Because honestly, what the fuck? So if you have never met this individual, if you have never heard of this person, red flags, and start chasing and start tracking. And that's when it's okay for you to become that detective, because something's wrong. So here's some online basics, right? For us parents. Number one, know what apps that they use often. Talk about scams at the dinner table, catfishing. No meeting strangers without you knowing. Never send images you wouldn't want shared. And I mean that. Like, so if for some reason they're dating somebody who is asking them to take pictures inappropriately or in a sexualized manner, obviously that's not something you want shared. So never send images you wouldn't want shared, because teen breakups can turn into public posts, group chat drama. I'm posting all these screenshots and threatening to you and bullying you. It just turns into that because people and teens are just fucking teens, man. They're teenagers, they're children. They're learning this shit. And then digital boundaries are relationship boundaries now. So you got to make sure you explain that. So the stuff, if your child is taking pictures with their partner or couple or dating or whoever, they have to be mindful of what those images are. So, all right, here's the truth. Teen dating is not just dating. It's practicing for adulthood. And your job isn't to control your teen's heart. Your job as a parent should be to build their skills, set safety boundaries, and create trust so they come to you before things go sideways. So instead of asking what age is appropriate, you should be asking yourself, is my teen ready? And what do we build next? Because maturity isn't a number, it's behavior. And if you're listening to this while your teen is texting someone right now, just remember, you got this. And if you don't got this, well, good luck to you. So now that I've given the advice, let's talk about the impacts of this stuff, right? So as parents, how does this impact us? How would this impact me and you, right? As a parent, or as an uncle, or as a niece, or as a grandma or grandpa. And now we're looking at these kids, and this is some of the stuff that I wish I knew about. I wish somebody had talked to me about it. I wish I had someone engage with me and talk me through this shit. So teen dating can affect mental health in both positive and negative ways, and we all know that. And the biggest divider isn't whether a teen dates, it's relationship quality and the teen's coping skills, the amount of support around them, and that is key. All right, so some of the potential mental health benefits, right, when it's a healthy relationship, and this is something that I had to look into because honestly I had to really think about my own personal experiences, and maybe you have time to think about yours, right? Did you get belonging, emotional support? A supportive relationship can act like a buffer, right, against stress, and is linked with lower depressive symptoms when relationship quality is good. So your kid is more active, more upbeat, more in a happy mood, obviously. Identity and social development. So adolescence is a very big identity building period for all of us, and healthy relationships can support confidence, communication skills, and resilience. And we all know that. It can help you come out of your shell, come out of your box a little bit, start talking more to more people about certain things. You feel more mature. You get like another boost in your confidence because you're able to talk, right? And skill building, practicing conflict resolution, empathy, and boundaries can help future relationship health when guided well. So in a very good relationship and with a very good support system, you're teaching your kids how to handle a positive way of handling conflict. You're showing empathy, that it's not just all about them, but they actually have to look at it the other side, and setting your boundaries. And this is something that they can take with them to work, something they can take to them in other relationships. They might even implement some of this stuff with you. Now, again, this is when everything's going well and you have positive mental health surrounding that individual. Here's the other side of that coin. So you as a parent have to be mindful of this stuff, because if you yourself do not have these in order, then you sure as hell are not going to be able to guide your child and your daughter or your son the right way, because you have not made the best choices. So what do? You ask and you lean on someone who has. You look for those people that are going to be a positive influence to your children along with you. You can guide them and tell them you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But like I've mentioned in previous podcasts before, you have to engage and show interest in what they do the right way. If they see you coping and doing stupid, dumb stuff, then don't think that they're going to respect what the fuck you got to say. Because they're going to look at you like the drunk, like the weed smoker that you are, and they're going to look at your habits and be like, why am I listening to you? You know what I mean? Like, hey, mom, your relationships are a revolving door, and you're telling me how relationships should be. Shit, you can't even keep one together. Facts. You can't get mad at that shit because they see that stuff. They see it. So be very mindful of how you act, and especially how you speak about their parent if you're co-parenting. So be mindful of that. Now, here is when shit goes bad. The common health risks, especially when a relationship is intense or unhealthy and they don't have a really good support system surrounding that child, here are some things that can happen. And maybe this happened with you. Breakups can hit hard. And then they could be a prospective risk factor for depression. And we know it's true, including increased likelihood of a first onset of a major depression. In some studies, it could have a toxic relationship, and that could raise symptoms with like a poor relationship quality and conflict are linked to a higher depressive symptom. And again, depression. Teens can spiral after conflict or breakup, replaying text, stalking, social media. Why wasn't I enough? Which can intensify sadness and anxiety and lower their own self-esteem, like they did something. And that is something that we as parents have to come in and re-emphasize and reinforce and rebuild these kids to the point, have that solid foundation that they can go through these breakups and these learning challenges without feeling completely defeated. In my case, me personally, because I didn't have those relationships with my folks, with my parents, I internalized a lot of it. I created my own narrative. And let's just say I did not have the best of relationships at all until I met my wife. And even when I met my wife, I was over the fucking top. I was that demanding, where are you at type of person. And she broke up with me the first go around. And I had to learn and almost damn near lose somebody I genuinely cared about until I figured it out. And the last one. Sorry. If you're dating someone who's violent and harasses you, and a meaningful chunk of teens experience psychological, physical, and sexual violence or stalking, harassment, and this is strongly associated with worse mental health outcomes. And that's where it's extremely important for you to have that conversation with your child and set those boundaries and expectations of what they should be expecting. And if they don't know what they should be expecting, start setting those ground rules right off the bat. So what makes dating more likely to harm mental health? So these are the patterns that tend to increase risk. Constant texting, isolation from friends, you're all that I need. That is a problem. Just be mindful of that. Low support. So strong relationships with caring adults repeatedly have shown as a major productive factor for a teen's mental health. So if your child is going through a breakup or a really tough relationship and they're able to support themselves and talk to you about how they feel about this particular person, that is a win, because not that many people have that. Even adults don't have that. And instead, they turn to really unhealthy coping mechanisms that puts them in a really tough spot. So as a parent, these are some of the things that we need to look out for. And these are some of the mental health signs, right? Sudden sleep, appetite changes, grades begin to drop, quitting activities, isolation, and persistent irritability, which means that they're short-tempered, they get pissed off all the time, they panic, they talk about themselves in a negative way, fearfulness around a partner, secrecy in particular, anxiety after messages, walking on eggshells. Any self-harm talk or suicidal thoughts, immediately treat as urgent. Okay? So that is extremely important. If you notice that your child is fearful or acts a certain way or is squeamish around a particular individual, those are signs that your teen is going through some shit and you need to have that conversation. But what helps most, right? Normalize feelings and teach coping. Grief after breakup is real. Help them name it. Move their body. Stay connected. Limit doom scrolling. Show them how to cope the healthy way. Going to the gym, going outside, looking at the sunlight. Not be looking at their text messages, rereading shit from that person. Healthy relationships, and let them know what these are. Those are relationships that have boundaries. They respect consent. They conflict repair. There's no pressure rules. A simple digital safety rule. Should be, again, no password sharing. No prove you love me. Location tracking. No, fuck that. No sending anything. And then keep adult support strong. Check-ins without interrogation. So let them know that they can reach out to you and establish that. Because I'll tell you what, you know what I mean? As a parent, and this podcast, like I said, today's episode is very parent-based. But if you're going through this, if you're a teen, if you have a daughter or a son that is beginning to start this, have those conversations. And I know that a lot of us as parents, some of us are not comfortable having these conversations with these kids, but we should not be shy of talking to our children and building them up. Because I'll tell you what, if you're not talking to your daughter, if you're not talking to your son, somebody else is building them up and grooming them to be a certain way that might be completely unlike you. Because there is nothing worse that if you are a respectful professional person who understands coping mechanisms and managing your emotions, then you choose not to have these conversations with your child and they are batshit crazy, completely depressed, and you have absolute zero knowledge of what they're doing. That is scary. Have those conversations. And then this is the other one that's going to make you kind of think a little bit. If you are a knucklehead parent, co-parenting, and you are just doing your own shit, if you are just completely just irresponsible, and you going on social media and posting stuff that you are a good parent, you're always spending time with your kids, that ain't telling me shit. What I look at is how that child acts day to day. Can you comfortably say that kid, that child, is looking to you as the example of how they want to be when they grow up? That is a good, solid self-evaluation. Do you want your kid to have the same coping mechanisms that you are currently having now? Self-reflect. Do you? Do you want them to drop out of school? Do you want them to get pregnant at a young age? Do you want them to have just absolutely shitty relationships? Do you want them to go through the breakups and crying and all this other shit that you went through? No, we don't. We want what's best for our kids. But if we don't start having these conversations now, somebody else will with them. And there's nothing worse that if you are that type of parent, that you struggle with your own mental health issues and your shitty coping mechanisms, and you make shitty bad decisions, and you are literally leaving or living from place to place. You're completely just unstable. There's nothing worse that is if that kid figures it out and they become the stable one, they become the mature one, and the relationship between parent and child, you lost them. You are going to lose them. Because if you cannot match their energy, if you cannot match and see them eye to eye in regards to responsibility and how you should be acting, because they're looking at you to make the right choices, and if they're making the right choices and you're not, they're becoming the parent and you still are doing your own shit. And it's self-reflection time. And this is the other thing that I advise you to parents. Quit looking around for somebody to give you a gimme and a hand-me-down, and a pobrecito, and people showing sympathy. No, cut it out. I say this all the time, and I say this all the time in the podcast. Look in the mirror. You are cultivating and you are grooming your kids to being future adults. You are they will be a reflection of who you are. So, do you want your son or daughter to do the same things that you did? Or do you want them to build and be better and take it to the next level? Think, inspire, and protect your kids. Do not bring them down. Do not show them that you are ignorant. Do not make them feel that they can't come to you and they cannot trust you for shit, because that gets old. Because eventually when they figure it out that you are just a parent to them by name, but not really a good leader for them and a good example, you've lost them. You are a second thought for them. So don't get mad if they get into a really healthy relationship and they don't even want to have you come over to the house because they know that the mom's going to be fucking drama. You know how sad that is? You bring a kid into this world, you raise them, you protect them, you feed them and all this and that, and then you get mad because they won't invite you. Well, maybe you've been a bunch of drama. And if you don't think you have to seriously self-reflect, because believe it or not, kids at a very young age, they're very receptive and they see everything that you do. So, engage, talk, have conversations, and make sure that you feel comfortable enough to have these conversations with your child if you know that they're into these relationships. It's okay to be a parent. You don't have to be your kid's best friend, but you have to be their safety net, their protector, their blanket, the person that's going to give them guidance. Be that. Have these conversations. Do not be scared. Do not be wary. Have confidence in yourself because you can do this. Because they need you. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hopefully the San Francisco 49ers tomorrow do their thing, and we're talking about them going to the NFC Championship. Oh, fuck, dude. I can't even believe my own damn shit. Anyway. Next season, we're going to pivot again, and we're going to talk a little bit about ICE, Trump, about some of the politics stuff that I've been seeing that I kind of want to speak on. It's going to be a pretty passionate episode for next week. In the meantime, right now, it's 8:24 in the evening. Today's date, like I said, is January 9th, 2026. Have a beautiful and wonderful evening. Stay safe. God bless. Be well. And good night. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share. The road to 10,000. Let's get it. Have a good night.